Yo, what's up, everybody? I hope you guys are doing great, and I hope you're excited for the 3-day weekend. Again, sorry that I wasn't able to be there. I will be there on Tuesday, but for now, bear with me, um, and let's go ahead and get these notes done. So again, let's not fall behind. I know I'm not there. We've got Mrs. Sosa's there, helping you guys out, and a wonderful sub as well. So again, please let's stay on task and let's get these notes done, because you do have to finish these notes before you are allowed to work on the worksheet. So let's take a look. So right off the bat, right, we're using point slope form, which is something that we have used before, right? So generally, if you guys remember, the way that we find information from point slope form is they give us a point and they give us a slope. So the easiest one to find is the slope, right? The slope is always your m, right? M is equal to slope. Let's go ahead and just label this slope. Now, your point is always going to be opposite of what you see. Now, the reason being is because remember that the y, that the negative there, just makes things into opposites, right? If you throw a negative in front of a 5, it becomes -5. If you put a negative in front of a -5, it becomes +5, right? Double negatives. So it's always going to be the opposite of what you see. That's not always the case with other equations, but with this one in particular, it is, right? So here, my this is going to be opposite of your y value. That's what you're going to see. It's always going to be the opposite of your y value, and it's of a point. And this is always going to be the opposite of the x value of a point. So let's keep looking. Okay, given a point and a slope, example one, let's go ahead and see if we can figure out what we're going to do. All right, example one, write the equation of a line in point slope form that has a slope of -3 and goes through point 5, 2. Again, let's go ahead. Come on, starting to lag a little bit. Go ahead and just label these, right? I have a slope of -3, so if you guys remember, that means that m, right, m is slope, is -3. And we have a point of 5, comma 2. So this is my x1, this is my y1. There should be a comma in between there. So both positive. So again, what you're going to see in here, it's just going to be the opposite of the numbers that you see. So let's go ahead and write our equation. So we have, we're going to go ahead and just start off with y and minus my y1. So my y1 is 2. So I should have just -2 here, right? -2, the opposite of the +2. My slope is -3. So I'm going to go ahead and write that in here. And then x, you know what? Let me go ahead and change this color to be a little bit more clear. Um, Boom. And here we should have the opposite of +5, which is -5. So that should be x -5, right? So this is my equation. It's not super difficult, right? But it does take some getting used to, right? We have to know that slope is m and that my points, that the ones that you're going to have in your equation are always going to be opposite of the points that you have. I do see a lot of students plugging in 5 first and then 2. Unfortunately, right, the way that this formula is written, right? You should be writing it in y minus y1. However, if you guys like to flip it and do just m times the quantity of x minus x1 equals y minus y1, you can do that. So it's just easier to plug in. But just the way that we write these equations so that we always have y equals, right? We always put the y's up front. But this is my formula. Okay, let's look at example 2. Write the equation of a line in point slope form. Again, that's the formula we're using. That has a slope of 2 over 3. So m is equal to 2 over 3. Positive, perfect. And the goes through the point negative 1, 6. So if my point is negative 1, 6, this is my x1, comma, this is my y1. Right? Let's go ahead and start plugging these things in. So I'm going to have y. Notice that again, we have positive 6. So we're going to go ahead and plug this in as negative 6. And when I say plug it in, we're just plugging in a positive into negative 6. And I'll show you why it works like that, right? We plugged in y minus 6. So y minus 6 stays as y minus 6, even if the parentheses are there, right? Now we're going to have a positive, and actually let's go ahead and turn that into a orange. This is going to equal to my slope 2 over 3 times x. Now, the reason that I say you guys are going to have the opposite of what you see is because when you subtract away a negative 1, well, remember, a double negative means it becomes a positive, right? So instead of writing this minus a negative 1, we like to just write plus 1. It makes my life easier, it makes your life easier, it makes everyone's life easier. So that's why I always say you should see, and remember when I said 6 on the y? How many of you were yelling at me about, hey, Mr. Martinez, you keep saying 6, but you keep writing 3, right? I apologize for that. But, right, if you have a positive number, here in this case for the y, you should have negative 6 here. And if you have a negative number, like we did here at this negative 1, you should have a positive number in there. So our final equation is going to be y minus 6 is equal to 2 over 3 times the quantity of x plus 1. All right, let's keep going. Example 3. Write the equation in point slope form 2 different ways of the line graph below. Okay, so the thing is that any line can be written in, at least any point slope form line can be written in an infinite amount of ways because it's called point slope, right? And every single line has an infinite amount of points. They go on forever. That's what these arrows tell us, right? That they're going to go on forever. But in this case, I've already highlighted or I've already put 3 different dots or these points on the line that we can use. So let's go ahead and use point slope form 2 different ways. Um, and in this case, we try not to use the 2 here, the 0, 2, because at the end of the day, it's just going to give you slope intercept form, right? So let's use any other point except for the y-intercept. So let's go ahead and use this point here. This point should be, it looks like it's negative 4 comma negative 1. And then this point here appears to be 4 comma 5. So let's write the equation in 2 different ways. The slope is going to be the same regardless every single time. But let's see. My slope is 1, 2, 3, up 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, up 1 or over 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like every single time my slope is positive 3 over 4. So let's write that down. I'm going to do m is equal to 3 over 4. And my points are going to be different. So let's actually do this. I'm going to put the slope here in the middle because we're going to use it twice. And the first point we're going to use, let's do the positive one. The positive one is always easier for me. I don't know about you guys, but at least for me, it's always easier. So, you know what? Since we're going to reuse the slope, let me just duplicate this now. The slope is 3 over 4 for both of them. And my iPad started lagging out of nowhere. Okay, perfect. All right. These are the 2 things we're going to go ahead and use. We're using 4 comma 5 with 5 over 3. And then we're going to go ahead and use, what was it, -4, -1, right? Yep, -4, -1 with 3, 4. Awesome. All right, let's start writing our equations. All right, remember, this is x1, y1, and then we've got my slope as my slope. So y, I see a +5 for my y1. So we're going to write in here -5. Boom. All right, this equals my slope, which is 3/4, my m, right? And for those who needed to see this again, this should be in this form, y minus y1 times m, or is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1, right? So I've got my slope in now. My x will carry down, and now I have +4, so I should put in -4 here. And that's my equation. Simple, right? Just plugging things in that we already know. Let's do this again, but now with this point. All right, we're going to start with y. I have a +1 for my y1. +1. We have a -1. So that means what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and plug this in as +1. Okay, essentially, right? And I know I keep saying plugging it in as +1, but what we're doing is we're subtracting away a negative, so that makes it a positive. So we plugged in a negative and it just became positive. So y plus 1 is equal to +3/4. The slope stays the same, times x. I have a -4 for my x1, so we should have the opposite in here. So there should be +4 on side of my parentheses, and then we just close up the parentheses, and we are done, right? These are my two equations. Now, I know they might not look it, but I promise you, if you were to simplify these questions, you would get the exact same y equals mx plus b form, right? My same exact slope-intercept form. You can also plug them into your calculator if you'd like to go ahead and check them. Example 4, write the equation. In point slope form, two different ways of the line. Write the equation in point slope form and two different ways of the line graph below. Okay. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to go ahead and write these into two different point slope forms, which is going to be simple enough, right? We've already practiced it once. Practice it again. If you want to practice it on your own, go ahead and pause the video. But I am going to go ahead and just and make these equations using these following points. I'm going to go ahead and use this point here. And you know what? I like a negative negative. I like the negative positive. And I like this positive positive. I always like my positive positives. It's pretty easy. You know what? That's too easy. You're right. Let's go ahead and do negative negative, or positive negative right here. We're going to use those 2 points. My first point on the top left, that's -2, 7. And right down here is going to be 3, -3. Okay, what is my slope? Down 2/1. So my slope for both of these equations are going to be -2/1. Or just -2, right? Because -2 divided by 1 is just -2. So we're just going to go ahead, and as soon as my iPad stops lagging, we'll be able to move on. It's okay, so m is equal to -2. We're going to use that for both. So now my points, we're going to use -2, 7, and we're going to use 3, -3. Perfect. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. Y. I have, again, these are my x1 and my y1s. So for my, oh my God, the lag is getting terrible. My y1 here is +7. So we're going to go ahead and write negative 7 is equal to my slope, which is negative 2. And then we're going to put parentheses x. And for my x1, we have negative 2. So we're going to write in positive 2. Done, right? Super easy, super fast, just plugging in, and we're done. I'm not even asking you guys to solve it, just plug it in. Let's do that again. Y, that's a Y, promise. All right, I'm going to label these again, just so that you guys can see it. This is x1, this is comma y1. And remember, we are just using this formula right up here. I'm about to duplicate to write these problems here. Boom. That's the equation we're using. All right. So y, I have a negative 3 for my y1. So we're going to go ahead and write in positive 3 for my y1. It's not technically my y1. My y1 is still negative 3, but we're just writing in positive 3 just to make our lives a little easier. And then negative 2 stays exactly the same, and x stays the same. And we have positive 3 for my x1, so this is going to be negative 3 here. And we're done. That's it. Right? Not too bad. We've done it 4 times now. And it's not that terrible, right? It's just doing it enough times that it just becomes very easy for us. Okay, so given 2 points, find the slope using the slope formula. Now, this is going to be where it starts to pick up in difficulty. And that is okay, right? We like to challenge ourselves. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean we should give up. It means we should try it and eventually master it, right? That's why this is the mastered it portion. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the slope. So here, what our goals are going to be is we're going to give you 2 points. We have to find the slope, and then we have to plug it into point slope form. And it's going to be a few steps, but let's just take it a step at a time and we'll get through it. All right. So write the equation in point slope form of the line that goes through the points 4, 3, and negative 1, 5. Perfect. If you guys remember the way that I taught it to you guys are going to probably see it different ways in the future, right? But the way that I taught it for you guys was let's take our first y and let's subtract our second y from it, right? Then let's take our first x and subtract our second x from it. And that's going to give us our slope. All right, so let's do that. All right, my first y, that's pretty simple. That's this 3 right over here. So my first y was 3. And actually, let's write our skeleton. I always tell you guys to make your little skeleton. All right, so I've got my first y, that's 3. Let's go ahead and subtract our second y from it, being 5. So minus 5. Done. Now let's go ahead and take our first x, 4, and let's subtract our second x from it, negative 1. But remember, if we subtract a negative 1, what we're going to do is add. But you know what? Let's just go ahead and plug this in as is. All right, so 3 minus 5 is negative 2. The bottom is going to turn into 4 plus 1. Negative 2 over 4 plus 1 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So this is our final slope. So my m ended up being negative 2 over 5. Perfect. So we found our slope. That's step 1, right? I feel like everybody's pretty good here at finding slope, but we found it. Let's see if we can finish this off. But the next step to writing our point slope form equation is to just pick a point. Doesn't matter which one. You can pick either one. I'll show you how it looks for either, but you only have to pick one, right? I only ask you, write the equation in point slope form. So if you pick this positive, this 4, comma 3, right? It will look like this. So we're going to go ahead, right? Again, we're reusing our y minus y1 is equal to m times the quantity of x minus x1. Okay? So let's go ahead. Y. I have a positive 3 on my y, so I should have a negative 3 here. This is going to equal to my slope, which we've established is negative 2 over 5, right? Again, we just got our slope and we're going to copy it in here. Now we're going to go ahead and multiply this by x. Since I have a positive 4 here, we're going to go ahead and write negative 4 there. So minus 4 and close up this parenthesis and we're done. This is my first answer. Perfect. Boom. Easy. Ain't nothing. Now let's go ahead and do this using my second point. Here's my second point. Let's go ahead and write it down here. All right. We're going to start with y. Now, because I have a positive 5 in my y, we're going to write negative 5 right there. So minus 5. And this is equal to negative 2 over 5. Remember, our slope stays the same. Our slope stays the same. Negative 2 over 5 times the quantity of x. We've got negative 1 in our x value, so we're going to plug into here plus 1. Or we're going to write in, not plug in. Let's say write in. That sounds better to me. And that's my second equation. Done. Those are my two answers, right? It looks really hard at first, but it's not. It's not too bad, right? It's just plugging in information that we know. If you are struggling with it, again, please let Mrs. Sosa's or our wonderful sub, don't know who it is yet, and let know, and they will help you. Okay? Let's keep going. One more. Again, if you want to try this on your own, go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own. Then you can use this to check, right? But if not, again, just follow along with the video. Okay. Remember, we're going to use the same exact slope formula. So my slope formula is m is equal, oh, the lag is real, y1 minus y2, right? My first y minus my second y over my first x minus my second x. All right, let's go ahead and write this in. My first y is negative 1. All right, plug that in if this would just stop lagging for a minute. My second y is 9. My first x is negative 2. And my second x is 3. Negative 1 minus 9, that's negative 10 last time I checked. Negative 2 minus 3, well, that's negative 5. Negative over a negative equals a positive, right? A negative divided by a negative equals a positive. So this will just go ahead and cancel out. And when I say this, I mean that negative. We just got positive 10 over 5, giving us 2. So my slope is 2. Dos. Now let's go ahead and write our equations. Okay, so if you use this point here, I'm going to write it right down there. Y, my y1 is negative, so we're going to write positive. My slope is 2, so we're just going to transfer it right there. X, and let's go ahead and close this. And let's see what goes in for my y1. So my my x1. My x is negative 2, so we're going to write positive 2. And that's it. That's my answer. We're done here with this one. Boom. Now let's do that with the second point. All right. Y. Because I have a positive y1, we're going to plug in -9 here. We're going to write in -9. This is equal to my slope, which is 2. At least in this case, it's going to always be 2. And now my x1, well, it looks like for my x1, we've got 3, right? So a positive 3. So we're going to write -3. And we are done. Look at that. Ain't nothing to it. All right, that didn't make a nice little box, but you guys know what I mean. That's my second answer. So if you guys got this without me, great job. You got it. You'll be able to help out students in the classroom. Okay. Now, this is it, and then we're done. Error analysis. Which step was the mistake made in? Well, let's see. And then we also have to write the equation. In slope intercept form. So remember, this is slope intercept form. So this is going to be in y equals mx plus b of the line that goes through the points 5, 6, and 6, 8. All right, perfect. So let's take a look. All right. So step 1, 6 minus 5. Yeah, I agree. That's 1, right? 8 minus 6. I also agree that does look like 2. So it looks like my slope here is 1 over 2. So that's awesome. All right. So step 1 appears to be perfectly well done. I agree. Step 2, right? In point slope form. All right. So they plugged in the slope correctly. And it looks like they're trying to plug in this point. But does it look right? Yeah, right. There's positive 8 here, so there should be a -8 there, and there's a positive 6 here, so there should be a -6 here. So that looks well done for me as well. Okay, so then what happened? Write in slope intercept. So remember, in order for us to write in slope intercept, the first thing that we have to do, why don't we do it ourselves and then see if maybe they did it incorrectly or not. Yeah, because so far, ah, I see where the mistake happened. That's what I get for being silly. Let's go ahead and mark this first. This is my X1. Actually, let's not mark this. If you see, some of you guys probably already caught it before me because I was expecting the mistake to be somewhere here, right? But this is a good lesson, right? Because sometimes the mistakes happen right in the beginning and we don't even notice them. So it looks like they used 5 comma 6, 6 comma 8. And I know that for the most part, remember, I told you guys, I like to do the first x y minus the second y over the first x over the second x. But it looks like here they were um, going some other way, at least at the bottom. So let's see. It looks like they did 6 minus 5, but that's this point, right? That's my y1 and my x1. So what they should have plugged in was this second y, 8. And now 5 goes here and 6 goes here. So what it looks to me that they did is it looks, at least in our case, because we like to plug in the first y and then the second y, is that they flip-flop these. Otherwise, if they did it their way, right, then what they did is they accidentally flipped their x's. They did 6 minus 5. They did x2 minus x1. And then 8 minus 6. So y2 minus y1. So in our case, because the way that we like to do it, right, is the y's first. To us, it looks like they just flip-flop these two numbers. But in reality, what they did, since they're using the original equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, they put the change in x at the bottom, or the change in no, the change in y's. Sorry, misspoke. At the bottom, and then the change in x on top. So this is what their slope looks like. Sorry, this should be again change in y over change in x. So it looks like, at least for us, it looks one way, but for them, it looks like they flip the x's and the y's. So let's go ahead and actually do this correctly. I already have it set it up correctly for the way that we do it, right? So let's go ahead and finish it. 6 minus 8 is -2. 5 minus 6 is -1. So our answer here is going to be +2. Awesome. Slope is corrected. And you can see, right? We got 2 over 1. They got 1 over 2. So they definitely flipped their x's and their y's. So let's do it. We've got our slope. M is equal to 2. So my first step, done. I'm just going to write it down here. And I'm going to call this step 1. Find the slope. Easy. Nothing. Nothing to it. Step 2. Let's plug this in, boys and girls. Why? Let's do the points that they did. They did this one, so let's do the same one, right? They have a well, actually, we can just essentially rewrite everything that they had, right? Because we have a positive y1, so we're going to plug in, we're going to write in -8. And then this is my slope. They have a positive 1 over 2, but we've already established that the slope has to be 2. And we're going to write in 6, -6. Awesome. Now we follow their math, right? We're going to go ahead and distribute. Y minus 8 is equal to 2x minus 12. And my last step is to add 8. So my final equation is going to be y equals 2x plus 4. And actually, this is step 3. Oh my God, the lag is terrible. And step would be writing it in that form. So all of this should go right here. But again, this is just notes, so I'm not being too picky about it for you guys, right? And there we go. We did it. We found our answer. And we are done. Awesome. All right. Sorry that this last question took a little bit, right? We have to walk it through. We have to always think about every step. And see, it looked like they did all the math correctly. They just messed up on the slope. And that's okay, right? If you guys did something similar, I would still give you most of the points. If you did all the rest of the math correctly, right? Let's say this was worth 5 points, I'd give you probably 4, maybe 3.5. But that's nothing to be ashamed about, right? So if you guys caught that before me, then great work. Um, and yeah, so that's it for the notes. So if you guys finished all these notes, then go ahead and just show Mrs. Sosa or the sub that we had for today, and they'll be giving you the worksheet that you got to work on for the rest of the day. Aside from that, I've got nothing else to tell you guys aside from have a great weekend, be safe, and I hope to see you guys on Tuesday.